My parents and siblings cut me off after I dropped out of medical school. "You're throwing away your future for art?" my mom screamed. 3 years later, my art was auctioned in Paris and they finally realized why I left. I grew up in a small town where everyone seemed to have a clear, defined path. My parents, Carol and Michael, were both doctors, and they made sure we, their children, knew from a very young age that the road to success was paved with a prestigious degree and a well-paying job. They didn't mean to impose, but their way of thinking left little room for anything else. I was always good at science, and as I got older, it became apparent that I was being groomed for med school. I don't remember ever questioning it. It was like there was a script for my life, and I just followed it. I studied hard, got good grades, and when the time came, I was accepted into one of the top medical schools. My parents couldn't have been prouder. But there was always a quiet part of me that felt suffocated. I remember spending late nights in my dorm room, staring at textbooks, feeling like I was trapped in someone else's dream. The passion I once had for helping people faded into the background as I got more and more overwhelmed with the pressure to succeed. It wasn't that I didn't care about medicine, I did. But I also cared about something else. Something I couldn't ignore any longer. Art had always been there, in the background. A hobby. A way for me to escape the weight of my responsibilities. I started sketching in the margins of my notebooks in between studying. I took up painting in my spare time, finding comfort in it when everything else felt overwhelming. But I never thought I could make it a real career. Not with the expectations placed on me. It wasn't until my second year of med school that the thought crept in, maybe I didn't want to be a doctor. Maybe I wanted to be an artist. But that was a ridiculous thought. Art? It was a fantasy, a fleeting thing that didn't pay bills or guarantee success. But the more I tried to push it aside, the more the desire to create grew. I spent an entire semester painting, hiding my works away in my apartment, afraid that anyone would see them. But I knew deep down that I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wasn't going to be happy living someone else's life. I needed to try. So, I did it. One day, I packed up my things, walked into my advisor's office, and told him I was leaving medical school. The moment I stepped into my parents' house to tell them, I knew it wouldn't go well. There was no way it would. But I had no idea how deep the fallout would go. I remember the shock in my mom's eyes when I told her. She didn't even let me finish before she started yelling. "You're throwing away your future for art?" she demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Do you have any idea how hard we worked to get you into that school? Do you know how much money we've spent?" I felt my stomach tighten as she stood there, pacing, shaking her head. I wanted to explain, to tell her how much pain I'd been in, how suffocating the pressure was. But I couldn't find the words. "We did everything for you," she continued, her voice rising. "And this is how you repay us? You're throwing it all away." My dad, as always, was silent. His disappointment hung in the air, but he didn't speak. My siblings, Olivia and Noah, stood there in the background, watching, but not saying a word. I didn't expect them to understand. They were both on the fast track to their own success. Olivia, always the overachiever, was about to finish law school, and Noah, the youngest, was already on his way to becoming an engineer. To them, my decision was incomprehensible. I left that day, my bags packed, my heart heavy. I moved into a tiny apartment on the outskirts of the city and tried to get my life together. It wasn't easy. I didn't have money. I didn't have much of anything. I had a dream and a stubborn determination to follow it. I spent the next few months working odd jobs, waiting tables, tutoring kids, doing anything to make ends meet. But every free moment I had, I painted. I painted like my life depended on it. And, in a way, it did. But there was a quiet sadness that followed me. My family didn't speak to me. Not a single word. I sent them a few texts here and there, but I never heard back. It was like I had disappeared from their lives completely. The isolation was unbearable. There were days when I wondered if I'd made the right choice, if I was just being foolish. But then I'd look at my paintings, and I knew I couldn't go back. Not now. Then, one day, out of the blue, I received a message. A small gallery in Paris wanted to show my work. I thought it was a joke at first. But it wasn't. They saw something in my art, something I had never realized was there. The gallery owners invited me to Paris to discuss an exhibition. I was overwhelmed. I'd never imagined this would happen. My art was going to be shown to the world. And not just shown, it was going to be auctioned. I poured everything I had into preparing for that exhibition. It was my chance to prove to myself that I was doing the right thing, that I wasn't crazy for following my heart. And when my painting, The Echoes of Silence, sold for more than I could have ever dreamed, I was on cloud nine. It felt surreal. The news spread like wildfire. Articles, interviews, and art critics were all talking about the unknown artist from America who shook up the Paris art scene. I couldn't believe it. My family heard about it, of course. I wasn't sure what they thought, but I didn't expect them to reach out. Not after everything that had happened. Then, a week later, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was shaky, and for the first time in years, I could hear the regret in her tone. "Ava, I saw the auction," she said. "I saw your work, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I'm so sorry. I was wrong." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to say, "I told you so," to let her know how much this hurt me, but I just couldn't. She was trying, and that was more than I had expected. "I'm just so sorry," she repeated. "We didn't mean to hurt you." It wasn't easy to let go of the hurt, to let go of the years of silence. But as I stood there, holding the phone, I realized that this was what I'd wanted, not to be vindicated, but to be understood. And in that moment, I felt a shift in our relationship. It was small, but it was there. I didn't rush to forgive her. I didn't have to. But I knew that, slowly, we were beginning to rebuild something. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. To my surprise, my dad reached out too. It wasn't much, just a simple text saying, "I'm proud of you," but it was enough. As the weeks passed, my parents and siblings began to reconnect with me. It wasn't easy, but it was happening. I've been living in Paris now for almost 3 years. My art continues to grow, and I've found a sense of peace that I never thought I would have. But it hasn't been without its struggles. The scars from my family's rejection are still there, and sometimes I still wonder if they'll ever fully understand why I did what I did. But for now, I'm learning to accept that my happiness doesn't need anyone else's approval. So here I am, asking for advice. My family has started reaching out, but I'm still torn. Do I let them back into my life after all this time? Should I try to rebuild, or is it too late? I'm not sure, but I'm willing to hear your thoughts. Has anyone else experienced something like this? How did you navigate the pain of family rejection and the desire to reconcile? I'm all ears. The days leading up to the Paris auction felt like a blur, but it was also one of the most defining moments of my life. My phone was buzzing with messages from reporters, collectors, and other artists who had seen the buzz surrounding my work. Every part of me wanted to take it all in, to embrace the success and the excitement. But amidst it all, there was a growing feeling of emptiness that I couldn't ignore. As much as I had moved on and found my own way, the reality was that my family wasn't there to share in this accomplishment with me. They weren't there to congratulate me or even to understand the significance of it. There were moments when I would stand in front of my canvas, brush in hand, and think about how different my life would have been if they had supported me from the beginning. I thought about the long nights I spent alone, painting in my cramped apartment, and how I had never once had someone, even my own family, say, "I'm proud of you." But despite that void, there was something even deeper within me. A sense of accomplishment, a sense of self-worth that no one else could take from me. I had built this life, piece by piece, from the ground up. And, at least for a moment, I felt that sense of freedom I had longed for. The night of the auction, I sat at the back of the crowded room, my heart hammering in my chest as my painting was placed on display. It felt surreal, watching the guests gather around it, admiring the colors, the texture. I had never seen anything like it, the way they responded to it, as if they saw something in it that I hadn't even fully understood myself. The gavel came down with a sharp thunk, signaling the sale of The Echoes of Silence for a price that left me momentarily speechless. More than I had ever thought possible, and more than I ever imagined earning from my art. But it wasn't about the money. It was about proving that this decision I had made, this leap of faith, was the right one. I had found my voice. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully soak in the moment. To feel proud. For all the sacrifices I had made, for all the doubts I had fought through, this was the culmination of years of quiet struggle. I was doing what I loved, and the world was starting to notice. But that evening, as I walked out of the auction house, the reality of my fractured family hit me again. There was no one to call, no one to share this with. My phone was silent, and while I had friends and colleagues in the art world who congratulated me, there was a cold emptiness where my family's support should have been. It was a difficult thing to admit to myself, but I missed them. I missed the people who had raised me, the people who had shaped my values, even if I disagreed with them. And then, 2 days later, the unexpected happened. I got a call from my mom. "Ava," she said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't even know where to start. I saw the auction. I saw the article. I saw what you've done. And I don't know how I missed it before. I'm sorry. I was wrong." I stood there, frozen, the weight of her words sinking in slowly. For so long, I had expected nothing from her, had convinced myself that I didn't need her approval. But hearing her apologize, hearing her finally admit that she had been wrong, it was like a floodgate had opened. It was also one of the hardest things I had to hear. The years of silence, the sharp words, the cold shoulders, they couldn't be erased with an apology. But, for the first time in a long time, I realized that my mom was finally seeing me. I didn't know how to support you, Ava," she continued. "All I could see was the life you were throwing away. I was scared. I thought you were making a mistake. I thought you were being reckless." I let out a slow breath, trying to steady myself. There was so much I wanted to say, but the words didn't come. I wasn't sure I was ready to forgive yet, to let the years of pain simply wash away. "I understand," I finally said. "I understand why you were scared. But I had to do this for myself. I had to be honest with myself, even if it meant losing everything I thought I wanted." There was silence on the other end for a moment, then a sigh. "I can't tell you how sorry I am. I never wanted to make you feel like you weren't good enough. I should have believed in you. I should have seen the person you were becoming." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to let her back in right away, to forgive her and forget the years of harsh words and the endless pressure. But there was a part of me that still felt betrayed, that still felt like a part of me had been abandoned. It was hard to let go of that. "I appreciate you saying that," I said quietly. "But I don't know what to do with it. I don't know if I can just forget everything that's happened." And I couldn't. Not yet. I wasn't ready to just pick up where we left off, to pretend that everything was okay when it wasn't. But I also didn't want to close the door completely. Part of me still wanted my family back, even if I couldn't fully trust them just yet. The conversation ended on a tentative note. My mom said she would reach out again soon. She said she wanted to visit me in Paris, that she wanted to see the life I had built. I didn't know if I was ready for that, but I told her I'd think about it. The weeks that followed were a strange mix of emotions. On the one hand, I had achieved what I set out to do. My career as an artist was blossoming. But on the other hand, my family's rejection still stung. There were moments when I would go to bed and feel an overwhelming sense of loneliness, knowing that my family had cut me off for so long. And it wasn't just my mom. My dad, who I hadn't spoken to in over 2 years, sent a brief text after seeing the auction results. "I'm proud of you." It wasn't much, but it was something. It was a start. But then, a few days after my mom's call, I got a message from my younger brother, Noah. He had always been the more laid-back one in the family. When I was younger, we would spend hours drawing together. He was the only one in the family who had ever shown an interest in art. I hadn't expected him to reach out, not after everything that had happened. His message was simple: "I saw your auction, Ava. I'm really proud of you. I always knew you had it in you. Let me know when you're free. I'd love to talk." I stared at his message for a long time, unsure of how to respond. Part of me wanted to reach out immediately, to reconnect with him. But there was a part of me that felt nervous. What if he didn't really understand what I had been through? What if he only saw my success as something fleeting, something that didn't matter in the long run? But then, after a few days of thinking about it, I finally responded. "Thanks, Noah. I'd love to talk. How about this weekend?" We agreed to meet at a small cafe in Paris. I didn't know what to expect, but I was hopeful. I'd always felt a special bond with Noah, even when we were kids. If there was one person in my family who might understand, it was him. As the days passed, I began to feel a sense of anticipation. Rebuilding relationships after everything that had happened seemed like an impossible task. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth trying. The day of the meeting with Noah arrived, and I couldn't stop the butterflies in my stomach. I was nervous, but also excited. I hadn't seen him in so long. Would we pick up where we left off? Would the time apart have changed him? Would I even be the same person I was when we used to paint together as kids? We met at a cafe in Paris, a small, quiet spot tucked away from the main tourist areas. When I saw him, I felt a wave of familiarity wash over me. He hadn't changed much, still the same easygoing smile, the same kind eyes. There was a slight nervousness to him too, but that was normal. This wasn't just a casual coffee, we were rebuilding something that had been broken for a long time. "Hey, Ava," he said, as we hugged briefly. It's good to see you." "You too," I replied, trying to hold back the emotions I had been carrying for so long. We sat down, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was comfortable, but heavy with everything that had gone unsaid over the years. After a few moments, Noah broke the silence. "I'm really proud of you, Ava. I know Mom and Dad, they didn't get it. But I always believed in you. You know that, right?" I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. It wasn't easy to hear that, knowing how much my family had distanced themselves from me. But in that moment, I realized that Noah was the only one who truly understood. He wasn't burdened by the same expectations. He wasn't trying to fit into a mold that wasn't his. "I've missed you," I admitted. "I've missed us. Remember when we used to draw together? When we were kids?" It felt so simple back then, but I never realized how much it meant to me. He smiled at that, and I saw a glimmer of the Noah I remembered. "Yeah, I remember. I used to think we'd both be artists, you know? But I guess life got in the way for both of us." "Yeah," I said softly. "It definitely did." We spent the next hour talking about everything: art, life, and how things had changed since we last saw each other. It wasn't just the art that had changed. It was everything. I could tell he had his own struggles, his own battles with expectations, just like I had. He had followed a path, too, but it wasn't the one that had ever really made him happy. "I'm glad you're doing this," he said, motioning to the art world. "I can't imagine the kind of pressure you were under, trying to live up to what they wanted from you. But you did it. You are doing it." The pride in his voice was so genuine that it made me want to reach out and hug him, but I held back. Instead, I just smiled. "Thank you, Noah. I needed someone to see it. To see me." We talked for a while longer, catching up on everything we had missed in each other's lives. But I could feel the conversation turning. I could feel the weight of the past, the ghosts of our family's expectations, starting to loom between us. As much as we had shared, we both knew there were things left unsaid. "So, what about Mom and Dad?" Noah asked quietly. "Are you going to talk to them? Are you going to let them back in?" That question hit me like a brick. I had been thinking about it for weeks, about how to handle the slowly creeping messages from my parents. About how, despite everything, I still longed for their approval. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore what they had put me through. They had cut me off, silenced me, and for what? Because I didn't want to follow their dream for me? "I don't know," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I want to, but I'm scared." They didn't understand. They pushed me away when I needed them the most. How do I just forgive that? Noah was quiet for a moment, sipping his coffee as he thought about it. "I get it," he said softly. "But you've changed. You've built something incredible. You've done everything on your own. They're the ones who need to come to terms with that. Not you." The words stung, but they were true. The longer I sat there, the more I realized that the power had shifted. I wasn't the young girl who had been pushed into medical school anymore. I wasn't the child trying to meet everyone's expectations. I was an adult. A successful one, at that. My success wasn't their success. It was mine, and it was time for them to recognize that. A few days after meeting Noah, I got another call from my mom. This time, I was ready. I didn't know what she was going to say, but I knew I had to be strong. I knew I had to set boundaries. "Ava," her voice was tentative. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About what I said. About how I treated you. I want to make things right. Please, just come home. We can talk about it. We can try to fix things." The words came fast, but I could hear the vulnerability in her voice. The desperation. She wanted to fix things on her terms, but I couldn't let her have that control over me anymore. "I've thought about this a lot," I said, my voice steady but firm. "And I think we both need to understand something. You and Dad were never there for me when I needed you most. You cut me off. You didn't try to understand why I was doing what I did. You just assumed I was making a mistake. And it hurt. It really hurt." There was silence on the other end of the line. I knew she was probably preparing a defense, but I wasn't going to let her. Not this time. "I'm proud of what I've done," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "I built my life on my own. And now, if you want to be a part of it, you need to show me that you're willing to respect my choices. To respect me." Her voice softened, and I could hear the apology in her tone. "Ava, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how much I was hurting you. I just thought I was doing what was best for you." "I know, Mom. But sometimes, what's best for someone isn't what we think it is," I said, my heart pounding. "I'm not a doctor. I'm an artist. And I'm happy." There was a long pause. I could almost hear the wheels turning in her mind, as if she was finally beginning to understand. "I'm sorry, Ava," she whispered again, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry for everything. I just want you to be happy." "I know, Mom. And I want that too. But we can't go back. We can only move forward." The conversation ended with a tentative promise to try again, but I knew it wasn't going to be the same. It would never be the same. My parents' approval no longer defined me, and they would have to earn back my trust, one step at a time. In the weeks that followed, my life continued to evolve in ways I had never imagined. My art career flourished even more, with exhibitions in London, New York, and finally, a solo show in Tokyo. But despite all the success, I felt a sense of fulfillment I hadn't expected. I had taken control of my own narrative. I had found peace in my decisions, even if they had caused pain along the way. As for my family, they tried. They sent me messages, invited me to visit, and occasionally we spoke on the phone. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I didn't need their approval anymore to know that I had made the right choice. But in time, they came to understand that this was my life, my journey, and that the only way forward for us all was to respect that.